I discovered my wife got kidnapped on my neighbor's Ring doorbell footage. Emma didn't come home last night. At first it didn't seem like a big deal. Maybe she lost track of time. Maybe her phone died. But as the hours passed, something felt wrong. She had only gone down the street to visit Tom and Linda. A quick chat, maybe a drink, then back home. She would have called if she decided to stay longer. She always did. But tonight, nothing. By midnight, the house felt unbearably quiet. The bed was cold, untouched. Every time I glanced at the clock, my stomach twisted tighter. I called her, straight to voicemail. I texted, no response. I checked my phone every 5 minutes, waiting for that familiar chime. Nothing. I tried to stay calm. Maybe she had fallen asleep at Tom and Linda's. It wouldn't be the first time. I just needed to check. I threw on my jacket and stepped outside. The air was cold, sharp. The street was eerily still, only the distant hum of a passing car breaking the silence. I walked quickly, my breath visible in the air. Tom answered the door, looking confused. His eyes flicked to the clock on the wall behind him. He shook his head. Emma never showed up. That's when the fear hit me. I stood there trying to process it. She had left the house, that was certain, but she never arrived. Somewhere in the short walk between our home and theirs, she had disappeared. Linda appeared in the doorway, pulling her robe tighter around her. Concern creased her face. She suggested we check the Ring doorbell footage. Maybe it would show us where she went. Welcome back to PlotTwister. Before we unravel today's mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always in the loop. Tom pulled up the footage on his phone. We huddled close. The screen's glow, the only light between us. The footage played. Emma walking down the street, moving quickly as if she was cold. Then out of nowhere, a figure appeared behind her. A tall man wearing dark clothes. He moved fast, too fast. My heart pounded as we watched him grab her. She tried to pull away, but he was too strong. Then just like that, they vanished into the night. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest. My mind struggled to keep up with what my eyes had just seen. Emma, taken, right in front of our house. Tom cursed under his breath. Linda clutched his arm, her face pale. My hands were shaking as I gripped the edge of the table, staring at the frozen image on the screen. The man, his dark hoodie, his grip on her arm, the way he dragged her out of view as if she weighed nothing. I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. My voice came out rough, barely controlled. I told him everything. The footage, the man, the fact that my wife was missing. The dispatcher asked me to stay calm, said officers were on the way, but that wasn't good enough. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door. Tom followed, barely stopping to slip on his shoes. The street was eerily silent. The same stretch of pavement Emma had walked just hours ago. The same place she had vanished. We moved fast, scanning every shadow, every alley, every parked car. The wind whistled through the empty street, sending a chill down my spine. A street light flickered above us, buzzing like an insect trapped in a jar. Then I saw it. A torn piece of fabric caught on a chain-link fence near the alley. Emma's scarf. My pulse pounded in my ears as I yanked it free. The fabric was soft, still warm from her body heat. She had been here. She had fought. Footsteps echoed nearby. Tom spun around, his breath quick, searching the darkness. A figure moved in the distance, slipping between buildings. My throat tightened. Was it him? The man from the footage? We ran toward the alley, the sound of our shoes slapping against the pavement. The air smelled of oil and damp concrete. A metal dumpster loomed in the shadows, graffiti scrawled across its side. Then we heard voices. Low, hushed, filled with something dark. A group of men stood beneath the street light at the end of the alley. One of them held something in his hand, turning it over in the dim glow. Emma's purse. The alley felt like it was closing in. The dim glow of the street light cast long, sharp shadows across the cracked pavement. The men stood in a loose circle, their backs hunched, their heads turned as they whispered. One of them flipped Emma's purse open, rifling through it like it was just another score. My chest tightened, my fists clenched. The urge to charge in, to grab that man by the throat, nearly overwhelmed me. But then I saw him, the man from the footage, the one who had taken her. He stood apart from the others, his stance rigid, His hands clenched at his sides. His body was angled slightly, positioned between the group and something behind him. My breath caught. Behind him, pressed against the alley wall, was Emma. Her face was pale, her hair wild. Even from this distance, I could see the panic in her wide eyes, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at them. One of the men stepped forward, his jacket shifting to reveal the dull glint of a knife tucked into his waistband. His lip curled in a smirk as he pointed at the man in the hoodie. "You got in the way," he said, his voice low, threatening. The man in the hoodie didn't flinch. He just squared his shoulders, standing firm in front of Emma like a wall of steel. "She's not part of this," he said, his voice steady. "Walk away." The leader let out a sharp laugh. Another man cracked his knuckles, shifting his weight. There was a shift in the air, something dangerous, something ready to snap. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. Gravel crunched under my shoes, and all at once, the gang turned. Their eyes locked onto me. A slow grin spread across the leader's face. "Well, look who showed up," he said. My pulse thundered. Emma let out a small, desperate sound, but the man in the hoodie didn't move, his body still blocking her. The leader took a step closer, his fingers twitching near his waistband, and then everything exploded into motion. The alley erupted into chaos. The gang leader lunged, his hand flashing to his waistband. The dull glint of a knife caught the flickering street light. Before he could pull it free, the man in the hoodie struck first. A sharp, brutal punch to the jaw sent the leader staggering back, his knife clattering to the ground. One of the others rushed forward, swinging a metal pipe. The hooded man ducked, fast, precise. The pipe whistled through empty air before the attacker could recover. The hooded man grabbed his wrist and twisted, forcing the weapon from his grip. The pipe clanged against the pavement. I didn't think. My body moved on instinct. I ran toward Emma. She let out a choked sob as I reached her, her arms wrapped around me, fingers gripping the fabric of my jacket like she was afraid to let go. Her body trembled, but she was unharmed. I could feel her heartbeat pounding against my chest. Behind us, the fight wasn't over. The gang leader, still dazed, wiped blood from his mouth and spat onto the ground. His eyes burned with fury. He motioned to his remaining man, a lanky guy with a shaved head. "End this," he growled. Shaved Head reached into his pocket, pulling something small and cold-looking. A gun! My breath caught. Emma gasped. Then the man in the hoodie moved again. Fast. He lunged forward, grabbing Shaved Head's wrist before he could even aim. With a sharp twist, the gun spun free, skidding across the alley. A grunt of pain followed, and then another solid hit. This time a knee to the gut. Shaved Head collapsed onto his knees, gasping for air. The leader's face twisted in anger. His hands clenched into fists. Then, just as quickly as it started, he hesitated, his eyes darting from the man in the hoodie to the gun lying out of reach. His nostrils flared. Then he ran. The others followed, their footsteps slapping against the pavement as they disappeared into the night. Silence. The hooded man turned to me, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His knuckles were raw, bloodied. He looked at me for a long moment, then at Emma. "I didn't take her," he said. His voice was calm. "I saved her." The alley was quiet now. The only sounds were our breathing, the distant hum of traffic, and the faint ringing in my ears. The gang was gone. Emma was safe. But my heart was still hammering. Emma clung to me, her body shaking. I ran my hands over her arms, her back, making sure she was really okay. No bruises, no cuts, just terror in her eyes. She buried her face into my chest, letting out a broken sob. The man in the hoodie stood a few feet away, his posture tense, his fists raw and bloodied, slowly unclenched. The way he stood, the way he looked at Emma, I could tell he wasn't just some stranger in the dark. I took a step toward him. The street light flickered above us, casting long shadows. My throat was dry, my mind spinning. You stopped them," I said. His eyes met mine. There was no anger, no resentment, just exhaustion. "They were following her," he said. "I saw them back at the gas station. They waited until she was alone. I knew what was coming." He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. I tried to get her away before they could grab her first. Emma lifted her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "You saved me." He gave a small nod. In the distance, sirens wailed. Growing closer. The police. Someone must have called them. Maybe Tom, maybe a neighbor. It didn't matter. They were too late. The man glanced toward the sound, then back at me. His expression was unreadable. "Name's DeAndre," he said. "I don't stick around for questions." He turned to leave, but I took another step forward. "Wait." He paused. I swallowed hard. My stomach twisted when I thought about what I had assumed when I saw that ring footage. How fast my mind had jumped to the worst possible conclusion. I looked at him in the eye. "Thank you." He held my gaze for a moment longer, then gave the smallest of nods before disappearing into the night. Emma squeezed my hand. Her eyes were still red, and there was relief now. She was safe. That was all that mattered. Things weren't what they seemed. And tonight the man I thought was the villain turned out to be the hero. What are your thoughts on the twist we uncovered today? Comment your ideas below. Make sure to like and subscribe for a daily dose of drama and mystery. See you later with another twist.